The Shepherd's Search for Mind. One day Judson Milarepa descended from the great light cave to the happy village of Mang Yule for food and alms. Seeing many people in the center of the village, he said to them, "Dear patrons, please give me some food this morning." They asked, "Are you the much-talked-about yogi who formerly resided at Ragma?" He replied, "Yes, I am." Then a great respect for him arose with them, and they cried, "Oh, here comes the wonderful yogi." Among them was a married couple who had no children. Inviting Milarepa to their home, they served him and said, "Dear Lama, where are your home and relatives?" Milarepa replied, "I am a poor beggar who has disavowed his relatives and native land, and has also been forsaken by them." Then the couple cried, "In that case, we would like to adopt you into our family. We have a good strip of land which we can give you, and you can then marry an attractive woman, and soon you will have relatives." Milarepa replied, "I have no need of these things, and will tell you why. Home and land at first seem pleasant, but they are like a rasp filing away one's body, word, and mind. How toilsome plowing and digging can become, and when the seeds you planted never sprout, you have worked for nothing. In the end it becomes a land of misery, desolate and unprotected, a place of hungry spirits and haunting ghosts. When I think of the warehouse for storing sinful deeds, it gnaws at my heart. In such a prison of transiency, I will not stay. I have no wish to join your family." The married couple said, "Please do not talk like that. We will find you a fine girl from a prominent family who is fit to be your bride, and who will suit your taste. Please consider this." Milarepa sang, "At first, the lady is like a heavenly angel. The more you look at her, the more you want to gaze. Middle-aged, she becomes a demon with a corpse's eyes. You say one word to her and she shouts back too. She pulls your hair and hits your knee. You strike her with your staff, but back she throws a ladle. At life's end, she becomes an old cow with no teeth. Her angry eyes burn with a devilish fire, penetrating deep into your heart. I keep away from women to avoid fights and quarrels. For the young bride you mentioned, I have no appetite." The husband then said, "Dear Lama, is it true that when one grows old and close to death, he has not the same capacity for the enjoyment of life or for being pleasant as when he was young? But if I have no son, my grief and disappointment will be unbearable. How about you? Don't you need a son at all?" Milarepa sang in reply, "In youth, a son is like the Prince of Heaven. You love him so much that the passion is hard to bear. In middle age, he becomes a ruthless creditor to whom you give all, but he still wants more. Driven from the house are his own parents, invited in his beloved charming lady. His father calls, but he will not answer. His mother cries out, but he will not listen. Then the neighbors take advantage, spreading lies and rumors. Thus I learn that one's child often becomes one's enemy. Bearing this in mind, I renounce the fetters of samsara for sons and nephews. I have no appetite." Both husband and wife agreed with him, replying, "What you have said is indeed true. Sometimes one's own son becomes an enemy. Perhaps it would be better to have a daughter." What do you think?" In answer, Milarepa sang, "In youth, a daughter is like a smiling heavenly angel. She is more attractive and precious than are jewels. In middle age, she is good for nothing. Before her father, she openly carries things away. She pilfers secretly behind her mother's back. If her parents do not praise her and satisfy her wants, they will suffer from her bitterness and temper. In the end, she becomes red-faced and wields a sword. At her best, she may serve and devote herself to others. At her worst, she will bring mishaps and disaster. Woman is always a troublemaker. Bearing this in mind, one should avoid irretrievable misfortunes. For women, the primary source of suffering, I have no appetite." The husband and wife then said, "One may not need sons and daughters, but without relatives, life would be too miserable and helpless. Is this not so?" Milarepa again sang, "At first, when a man greets his relatives, he is happy and joyful with enthusiasm. He serves, entertains, and talks to them. Later they share his meat and wine. He offers something to them once. They may reciprocate. In the end, they cause anger, craving, and bitterness. They are a fountain of regret and unhappiness. With this in mind, I renounce pleasant and sociable friends. For kinsmen and neighbors, I have no appetite." The couple then said, "Indeed, you may not need kinsmen. However, since we own a great deal of property, would you like to take care of it?" Milarepa replied, "As the sun and moon never stop to brighten one small place, so I devote myself to the welfare of all sentient beings. I cannot therefore become a member of your family. By merely beholding me, both of you will be benefited in this and future lives. I will also make a wish that we may meet in the pure land of Sukhavati." Milarepa then burst into another song. "Wealth at first leads to self-enjoyment, making other people envious. However much one has, one never feels it is enough, until one is bound by the miser's demon. It is then hard to spend it on virtuous deeds. Wealth provokes enemies and stirs up ghosts. One works hard to gather riches, which others will spend. In the end, one struggles for life and death. To amass wealth and money invites enemies. So I renounce the delusions of samsara. To become the victim of deceitful devils, I have no appetite." These songs gave the couple unshakable faith in Milarepa, and they gave away all their possessions for the sake of the Dharma. They began to practice the Jetson's teachings and were forever released from falling into the 3 lower realms. When they died, they entered the path of Bodhi and step by step approached Buddhahood. After this, the Jetson returned to the Bodhi cave of Ragma. His former patrons gave their servants and offerings to him, and he remained there in an inspired mood. One day, 2 young shepherds came to him. The younger one asked, "Dear Lama, have you a companion?" Milarepa replied, "Yes, I have." "Who is he?" "His name is Friend Bodhi Heart." "Where is he now?" "In the house of Universal Seed Consciousness." "What do you mean by that?" "My own body." The elder boy then said, "Lama, we had better go, as you cannot guide us." But the younger one said, Do you mean the consciousness is mind itself, and that the physical body is the house of the mind? Yes, that is correct. The boy continued, We know that although a house usually belongs only to one person, many people can enter it, so we always find a number of people living in one house. In the same way, is there only one mind in the body, or are there many? If there are many, how do they live together? Well, as to whether there is only one mind in the body or many, you had better find that out for yourself. Revered one, I will try. At this point, the boy took their leave and went home. Next morning, the younger boy returned and said to Milarepa, Dear Lama, last night I tried to find out what my mind is and how it works. I observed it carefully and found that I have only one mind. Even though one wants to, one cannot kill the mind. However much one wishes to dismiss it, it will not go away. If one tries to catch it, it cannot be grasped, nor can it be held by pressing it. If you want it to remain, it will not stay. If you release it, it will not go. You try to gather it, it cannot be picked up. You try to see it, it cannot be seen. You try to understand it, it cannot be known. If you think it is existing entity and cast it off, it will not leave you. If you think that it is non-existent, you feel it running on. It is something illuminating, aware, wide awake, yet incomprehensible. In short, it is hard to say what the mind really is. Please be kind enough to explain the meaning of the mind. In response, Milarepa sang, Listen to me, dear shepherd, the protector of sheep. By merely hearing about sugar's taste, sweetness cannot be experienced. Though one's mind may understand what sweetness is, it cannot experience directly. Only the tongue can know it. In the same way, one cannot see in full the nature of mind, though he may have a glimpse of it. If it has been pointed out by others, if one relies not on this one glimpse, but continues searching for the nature of mind, he will see it fully in the end. Dear shepherd, in this way you should observe your mind. The boy then said, In that case, please give me the pointing out instructions, and this evening I will look into it. I shall return tomorrow and tell you the result. Milarepa replied, Very well. When you get home, try to find out the color of the mind. Is it white, red, or what? What is its shape? Is it oblong, round, or what? Also, try to locate where in your body it dwells. The next morning, when the sun rose, the shepherd drove the sheep before him and came to Milarepa, who asked, Did you try last night to find out what the mind is like? The boy replied, Yes, I did. What does it look like? Well, it is limpid, lucid, moving, unpredictable, and ungraspable. It has no color or shape. When it associates with the eyes, it sees when with the ear. It hears when with the nose. It smells when with the tongue. It tastes and talks, and with the feet it walks. If the body is agitated, the mind too is stirred. Normally, the mind directs the body. When the body is in good condition, the mind can command it at will. But when the body becomes old, decayed, or bereft, the mind will leave it behind without a thought, as one throws away a stone after cleaning oneself. The mind is very realistic and adaptable. On the other hand, the body does not remain quiet or submissive. but frequently gives trouble to the mind. It causes suffering and pain until the mind loses its self-control. At night, in the state of sleep, the mind goes away. It is indeed very busy and hard-working. It is clear to me that all my sufferings are caused by it, the mind. The Jetson then sang, "Listen to me, young shepherd. The body is between the conscious and the unconscious state. While the mind is the crucial and decisive factor, he who feels suffering in the lower realms is the prisoner of samsara. Yet it is the mind that can free you from samsara. Surely you want to reach the other shore. Surely you long for the city of well-being and liberation. If you desire to go, dear child, I can show you the way to you and give you instructions." The shepherd replied, "Certainly, dear Lama, I have made up my mind to seek it." Milarepa then asked, "What is your name?" "Sanjay Jap." "How old are you?" 16. Thereupon the Jetson gave him the teaching of taking refuge, explaining briefly its benefits and significances. He then said, "When you get back home this evening, do not stop reciting the prayer, and in the meantime, try to find out which takes refuge, the mind or the body. Tell me the results tomorrow." The next morning the shepherd came and said to Milarepa, "Dear Lama, last night I tried to find out which of these two takes refuge, the body or the mind. I found that it is neither of them. I observed the body at first. Each part, from my head down to the toes, has a name. I asked myself, is it the body as a whole which takes refuge? It cannot be so, for when the mind leaves the body, the latter no longer exists. People then call it a corpse, and certainly it cannot be called a refuge seeker. Furthermore, when it disintegrates, it ceases to be a corpse, therefore it cannot be the body which takes refuge in Buddha. I then ask myself, is it the mind that takes refuge? But the refuge seeker cannot be the mind, as the latter is only the mind and nothing else. If one sees that the present mind is the real mind, and that the succeeding one is the one which takes refuge, there will be two minds, and names for both, such as the present mind and the future mind, should then be given them. Besides, when the act of refuge-seeking takes place, both the present and succeeding minds have passed away. If one says, both take refuge, then the mind will become something immutable, which never grows or ceases to be. If that is so, then in all the lives of the past and future, in the 6 realms of samsara, we need nothing but this refuge seeker. But I cannot remember anything in my past life, nor do I know what will take place in my future one. The mind of last year and yesterday are gone. That of tomorrow have not yet come. The present flowing one does not stay. Pray, my teacher, please give me an explanation. I submit everything to you. You know everything. You know what I need." In answer to his request, Milarepa sang, "I sincerely pray to my Guru, who realized the truth of non-ego. I pray with body, words, and mind. I pray with great faith and sincerity. Pray, bless me and my disciples. Enable us to realize the truth of non-ego. Pity us and deliver us from the plight of ego clinging. Listen carefully, dear shepherd. Clinging to the notion of ego is characteristic of this consciousness. If one looks into the consciousness itself, he sees no ego. Of it nothing is seen. If one can practice the teaching of Mahamudra and knows how to see nothing, something will be seen. To practice the teaching on Mahamudra, one needs great faith, humility, and zeal as the foundation. One should understand the truth of karma, the causation of the path. In order to achieve the accomplishment, one should depend upon a guru for the initiations, instructions, and inner teachings. It requires a disciple possessing merit to receive the teachings. It requires a man who disregards comfort and suffering. It requires the courage of fearlessness, the defiance of death. Dear shepherd, can you do all these things? If so, you are well destined. If not, it is better not to talk about the subject. This ask yourself and think carefully. When you sought the eye last night, you could not find it. This is the practice of non-ego of personality. If you want to practice the non-ego of existence, follow my example and for 12 years meditate. Then you will understand the nature of mind. Think well of this, dear boy. The shepherd said, I offer you my body and my head. Please make me understand my own mind definitively and clearly. The Jetson thought, I shall see whether this child can really practice. And then he said, first pray to the three precious ones. Then visualize an image of Buddha in front of your nose. Thus Milarepa gave the shepherd the instructions of concentration and sent him away. There was no sign of the boy for 7 days. On the 7th day, his father came to Milarepa saying, Dear Lama, my son has not come home for a week. This is very unusual. Wondering whether he was lost, I inquired of the other shepherds who have been with him. They all said that he had come to you for the Dharma, and thought he had then gone home. But where is he? He was here, replied Milarepa, but he has not come back now for 7 days. The father was deeply grieved and wept bitterly as he left Milarepa. Many people were then sent out to search for the boy. Finally, they found him in a clay pit, sitting upright, with his eyes wide open, staring straight in front. They asked him, What are you doing here? He replied, I am practicing the meditation my guru taught me. Then why have you not returned home for 7 days? I have only been meditating for a little while. You must be joking. As he said this, he looked at the sun and found that it was either then the time he had started to meditate. In his bewilderment, he asked, What has happened? From that day on, the boy's family had great difficulty with him, because he had almost completely lost the notion of time. What appeared to him to have been only 1 day was the passing of 4 or 5 days to others. Many times his parents sent people out to search for him. Thus both he and his family began to feel miserable. At this juncture they asked him whether he wanted to live with Milarepa for good. He said that he would like nothing better, so they provided him with food and sent him to the teacher. Milarepa first gave him the precepts of the 5 virtues, preached the doctrine of the Dharma, and then granted him the teachings of the innate-born wisdom. Through practice, the boy gradually attained good meditation experience, and Milarepa was very pleased. In order, however, to clarify the boy's misapprehension on the nature of true realization, he sang, I bow down at the feet of Marpa, who received grace from Naropa Matripa. Those who practice the Dharma with their mouths talk much and seem to know much teaching, but when the time comes for the perceiver to leave the deadened body, the mouth-bound preacher into space is thrown. When the clear light shines, it is cloaked by blindness. The chance to see the Dharmakaya at the time of death is lost through fear and confusion. Even though one spends his life in studying the canon, it helps not at the moment of the mind's departure. Alas, those proficient yogis who long have practiced meditation mistake the psychic experiences of illumination for transcendental wisdom, and are happy with this form of self-deception. Therefore, when at death the transcendental wisdom of the Dharmakaya shines, these yogis cannot unify the light of mother and son. Since meditation cannot help them as they die, they are still in danger of rebirth in the lower realms. My dear son, best of laymen, listen to me carefully. When your body is rightly posed and your mind absorbed deep in meditation, you may feel that thought and mind both disappear. Yet this is but the surface experience of dhyana. By constant practice and mindfulness thereon, one feels radiant self-awareness shining like a brilliant lamp. It is pure and bright as a flower. It is like the feeling of staring into the vast and empty sky. The awareness of voidness is limpid and transparent, yet vivid. This non-thought, this radiant and transparent experience is but the feeling of dhyana. With this good foundation, one should further pray to the three precious ones and penetrate to reality by deep thinking and contemplation, and thus can tie the non-ego wisdom with the beneficial life rope of deep dhyana, with the power of kindness and compassion, and with the altruistic vow of the Bodhi heart. He can direct and clear the truth of the enlightened path, of which nothing can be seen, yet all is clearly visioned. He sees how wrong were the fears and hopes of his own mind. Without a rival, he reaches the place of Buddha. Without seeing, his vision is the Dharmakaya. Without effort, he does all things naturally. Dear son, the virtue seeker bears this instruction in your mind. Milarepa then gave the boy the complete initiation and verbal instructions. After practicing them, the boy attained superlative experiences and realizations. He was known as the heart son of the Jetsun, Repa Jangen Jap. This is the story of Milarepa's second visit to Ragma and of his meeting with Repa Sangye Jap.